Let's move on to Princess Kate's mom, otherwise known as Super Granny, Carole Middleton. And as a grandma to royal babies, she is completely hands-on.
What on earth could shake Queen Camilla, the most seasoned woman in the royal spotlight, to the point of tears? Not a scandal, not a press ambush, but a quiet, calculated move from someone she never expected. Carole Middleton. In a monarchy where control is everything, one woman without a crown may have just flipped the power dynamics inside Buckingham Palace. What really happened behind those locked palace doors? And why is everyone whispering that the crown's future may no longer rest where we thought? Let's dive into the stunning shift shaking the royal family to its core. While the world sees grace, gold, and tradition behind the palace gates, those close to the inner circle know a different truth. A battle for influence has been simmering for years, and the unlikeliest player in that game, Carole Middleton, businesswoman, mother, and the steady hand behind the Princess of Wales. Carole didn't arrive in the royal orbit by accident. She built her own empire, raised her children with discipline and kindness, and watched as her daughter married the heir to the throne. But what the world mistook for a supportive background role was in fact something much more potent. She brought something rare into the royal atmosphere: genuine stability, a sense of real-life normalcy, the kind of support system Prince William had been craving since his mother's tragic death. And that bond? It wasn't just emotional, it was influential. Queen Camilla, on the other hand, is no stranger to the politics of royalty. She spent decades reshaping her image, surviving public outrage, and slowly climbing to her position beside King Charles. So when Carole's steady influence began to reach deeper into William and Kate's lives, affecting decisions, appearances, even tone, it didn't go unnoticed, least of all by Camilla. Unlike the royals, who fade out of public view after marriage ties, Carole stayed very much involved. Whether it was helping raise her grandchildren, offering emotional support to Kate, or ensuring William had a trusted family figure nearby, she remained present. And that presence didn't sit well with everyone. Insiders say Camilla began pushing for a stronger grip on palace traditions, limiting outside involvement and ensuring the younger royals were aligning more closely with old-school customs than outside values. The impact was immediate. Family invitations grew fewer, schedules became harder to align. Time with the grandchildren shrunk under the weight of royal protocol. Subtle but undeniable changes were made to reduce Carole's access and involvement. But rather than confront the system, Carole took a different approach. She observed, she adapted, and she began quietly stepping back from select royal events, from palace functions, while ensuring her influence remained elsewhere, at home, with her family, and through her daughter. It wasn't a retreat, it was a realignment, and it caught the palace off guard. What started as minor adjustments soon grew into something larger. Carole's deliberate absence from royal photo ops and ceremonies began to raise eyebrows, not just among royal watchers, but within the institution itself. Kate began spending more time on private family projects rather than joint royal engagements. William's demeanor grew more relaxed, more grounded. Public interactions between the Wales family and Carole became more visible, painting a picture of closeness that quietly outshined formal royal traditions. Behind the scenes, it became clear William and Kate were leaning more into Carole's values than the institution's. Warmth, accessibility, emotional intelligence. They weren't palace staples, but they were becoming the Wales family brand. And Camilla? She reportedly felt the shift. Her traditional authority, once solidified through years of calculated moves, was beginning to feel less certain. The tides weren't turning in speeches or headlines, but in energy, in loyalty, in perception. Carole wasn't taking the spotlight. She was changing what the spotlight focused on. One of the first cracks appeared in 2015 during Princess Charlotte's christening. On the surface, it was a seamless royal event, but behind closed doors, tensions flared. Carole had worked to plan a post-ceremony reception, an intimate celebration meant to honor both sides of Charlotte's heritage. But just days before the event, palace officials reportedly stepped in. The guest list changed, the venue was moved, the menu completely revised. The tone shifted from family celebration to royal spectacle. Kate, caught between her roles as daughter and princess, could only watch as her mother's plans were undone. Carole, meanwhile, stood on the sidelines, dignified, poised, but fully aware of what had just happened. That day wasn't just a setback. It was a declaration from the palace. You are not part of this inner circle. And for Carole, it was the day she began planning her response, not in words, but in strategy. Tensions finally hit a boiling point at Prince Charles's 70th birthday. Surrounded by longtime aristocratic allies, Camilla was overheard discussing the rise of outsiders in royal life, making remarks about class, status, and tradition that, while subtle, carried a pointed message. She didn't name names, but the implication was clear. The Middletons didn't belong. For Carole, it was no longer about scheduling conflicts or etiquette. It was about classism. Her success, her work ethic, her family's emotional intelligence, all being subtly dismissed because they weren't born with titles. That moment didn't humiliate her. It galvanized her. She began collecting everything: notes, timelines, patterns of exclusion, not to expose, but to have a record, a quiet arsenal for when the time came to protect her family's dignity and possibly rewrite the narrative. And that moment came. In early 2024, Carole arrived at Buckingham Palace without cameras or escort, just a briefcase in hand and a sense of calm. What happened inside remains tightly guarded, but insiders say she presented documents, real documentation, financial trails, timeline discrepancies, potentially even information passed to her through business connections and social circles that royal insiders had underestimated. The reaction? Immediate. Camilla, usually composed and confident, reportedly left the meeting shaken. One source claims she was in tears, not because Carole had threatened her, not because she had exposed a scandal, but because the balance of power had shifted, quietly, permanently. Carole hadn't attacked the system. She had documented it. In the days that followed, palace operations were anything but normal. Key advisors returned to closed-door meetings, events were canceled or reshuffled, royal watchers noticed delays in announcements and last-minute changes to ceremonial appearances. Camilla all but vanished from public view. When she reappeared nearly 2 weeks later, her demeanor had changed. Fewer staff around her, briefer engagements, less certainty. Insiders described the palace mood as tense, anxious. Unspoken questions floated through every corridor. Who knew what? How much had been revealed? What would come next? Carole said nothing, but the silence was deafening. With the monarchy in quiet flux, Catherine emerged, not as a rebel, but as a recalibrated leader. Her role expanded rapidly. She wasn't just showing up to ribbon cuttings anymore. She was leading strategy meetings, working behind the scenes with staff, and influencing public narrative. Her projects became more personal, more impactful. Her presence in media became more consistent. Her reputation, already high, soared. Even William's advisors began crediting her with stabilizing their public image. And with Camilla stepping back, it was clear Kate was becoming the monarchy's new center of gravity, not with noise, but with purpose. And just behind her, as always, stood Carole, her quiet compass. There was no announcement, no press release, and no statement from the palace. But Queen Camilla's presence within the royal family didn't vanish. It simply faded. She began appearing at fewer public engagements. Her name was no longer headlining royal schedules. Her most treasured events, like the Royal Windsor Horse Show or charity receptions she once hosted annually, were suddenly led by others, or dropped altogether. Insiders noticed the change immediately. One royal aide described her withdrawal as a controlled retreat. Not a demotion, but a recalibration. Others weren't so polite. One palace source simply said, "She's being phased out." Her once loyal allies in the press began offering softer coverage, or none at all. Tabloid photographers who once chased her now lingered longer on Catherine. Editorials that used to prop up Camilla's transformation now shifted their tone, opting instead to revisit stories of resilience and warmth tied to Kate and the Middletons. Even within palace walls, the hierarchy began to shift. Staff began spending more time on Princess Catherine's projects. Events that once routed through Camilla's office now quietly bypassed it. Even personal invites, family lunches, diplomatic receptions, charity meetings seemed to trickle away. And it wasn't just professional distance, it was personal. Christmas 2024 was a striking example. The annual royal holiday photo was released, and for the first time in years, Camilla was present, but barely. Positioned at the edge of the frame with William and Kate front and center, the symbolism was impossible to ignore. A small visual cue, yes, but in the royal world, optics are everything. And dinner seating changed. Public walkabouts, shorter, staff numbers reduced. Even her private visits to Highgrove became more frequent, an indication she was spending more time away from the heart of palace operations. Camilla still wore the crown, but the corridors she once navigated with confidence had grown cold, and all the while, Carole Middleton remained silent. She didn't gloat, she didn't speak, she simply watched as the woman who once tried to sideline her was now, slowly, being ushered aside by the very system she fought to control. This wasn't just a shift, it was a reckoning. If you asked anyone in 2011 whether Carole Middleton would become one of the most influential forces inside the royal family, you'd have been laughed out of the room. She wasn't noble, she wasn't connected, she wasn't one of them. And yet, today, she stands as a key architect of a modern monarchy. The Middletons, once seen as outsiders from Berkshire, have reshaped how the royal family operates. Through principles, through presence, and through quiet persistence, they've become the monarchy's emotional core. Not by force, not by fanfare, but by being everything the institution has lacked for generations: grounded, real, and unshakably loyal. It began with Kate, with the grace and dignity she brought to every public duty, with the way she raised her children, mixing royal expectations with normal childhood experiences. But it didn't stop there, because behind Kate was Carole, a woman who taught her daughter how to lead without shouting, how to stand firm without scandal, how to make change without making enemies. And now, the monarchy is following that blueprint. William and Kate are the face of the royal family. Public trust in them is higher than ever. Their approach, combining tradition with relatability, is setting the tone for the future of the crown. They've embraced social media, connected with younger generations, and navigated global issues with care and nuance. And the Middletons are not in the background anymore. They are the silent scaffolding, holding the modern monarchy upright. Sources say even King Charles now recognizes Carole's stabilizing role. While he remains fond of Camilla, insiders claim that in private, he's begun consulting more frequently with William and Kate, whose decisions inevitably reflect Carole's values. The future of the crown no longer belongs solely to those born into it. It belongs to those who understand how to carry its weight, how to evolve with the times, and how to lead from a place of humility rather than hierarchy. And Carole Middleton? She never needed a title. She earned her place through wisdom, resilience, and unshakable grace. The palace may not say it out loud, but everyone inside knows the balance has shifted, and the influence once held by old titles has been replaced by something stronger: real respect, earned in silence. So, what do you think? Has Carole Middleton quietly become one of the most powerful women in royal history? Did Queen Camilla underestimate the strength of the woman behind the princess? Let us know what you think in the comments. And if you loved this deep dive, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a royal twist. Until next time, stay curious and keep watching.